Yo, what up, G dogs? I don't know, man. I'm not that hip. I'm not that with it. Okay, I just wanted to try. I had to give it a go. The old college try, as they say. How's everyone doing today? I hope you're doing well. We're going to get started in a few minutes here. My guests will be coming in. We'll be talking about Pax Americana, American Hegemony, a unipolar world order under the direction of the United States. A state we've been living in for a while now, by the way, but some say it is coming to an end. But yeah, it should be a good discussion today. I'm really excited to have my guests show up. We'll get into it when they get here. Give me 1 second, please. There was, though, before we start that, okay, as so often happens, annex Canada. We're going to get to that. We're going to talk about Canada. We're going to talk about Greenland. We're going to talk about Panama. We're going to talk about the concept of hegemony in general. But before we get to that, before I bring in my guests, before all that happens, I saw something that I'd been seeing things like this throughout the day. And this was a capstone. I think it was, if I had to describe it, it was representative of a mindset that I really want to focus on for a moment and address. And it's, to be clear, something I see across the political spectrum. It's something I see from left, right, and center, from extremists in general. So it's not just the left, though this example is from the left. And I wanted to point it out to you and take a moment to talk to you about how terrible it is. But showing isn't telling, right? So let me show you the tweet, and we will go through it. So you guys know about the forest fires, right? You guys are aware. There's a terrible wildfires in California right now near Los Angeles, and it's unfortunate. And I hope if you are in that area or you have family in that area, I hope you stay safe. Your objective right now is to survive. No dying allowed. Okay, get out. Stay safe, gang. That said, here we go. Here's a tweet. So someone tweeted, James Wood's house is burning down. It's karma calling. Person, reasonable individual. I'm not a fan of James Woods at all, but being happy his house burnt down isn't the answer. Be better. Aside from the little snarky be better at the end, which I hate that phrase, fair, but you know, it's pretty it's good. A good tweet, actually. Our friend Keith Olbermann. This is the attitude that lost the election. They will not compromise. They will not convert. They will not be human. They must be defeated, and any chance to bruise or batter them psychologically must be exploited. That's a real tweet, okay? It's not made up. It's not fake. It's real. Bros. Friends. Enemies. Okay. That person doesn't need a political victory. That person needs therapy. That person needs therapy, frankly. Keith Olbermann and takes like that of, we should take every opportunity to just revel in their suffering is gross on a level that it is hard for me to express. My revulsion to this, if I could make an analogy here, and when I read that tweet, I had the same level of revulsion I would have to eating some food and then watching a millipede crawl out of it and start to circle my dish. I would have that level of revulsion. This cannot stand. This is not okay. If this is a takeaway people have, they do not deserve to win. I would rather them not, frankly, if I can't tell the difference, right? I want a party that I can be proud of, not whatever the fuck that is. Get it away from me. Ew. Okay, I had to get that off my chest, gang. Okay, it was going to be a long night if I had to stew on that for a while, right? It's impossible to understate or to overstate. It's impossible to overstate the damage this is causing to Democrats. I saw another tweet. It was less bad, okay, but still what I think is pretty bad, of someone complaining that Biden was going to attend Trump's inauguration, right? They were complaining about it, saying he shouldn't have done it. And I was like, well, I responded to them a little more cordially. I was like, well, Biden not attending Trump's inauguration doesn't do anything for us. We don't, it doesn't help us win elections. It doesn't help us get policy passed. Nothing good really comes from it. It doesn't really do anything. And responses to that tweet were, again, almost word for word, this is the attitude that caused us to lose the election. And I swear to God, if these motherfuckers, the ones that actually caused us to lose the election, continue to tell me that, I am going to become the Joker. I am going to become the Joker. It will not be pretty. The ICC is going to bring me up on charges, okay, because of the things I'm going to do. It's going to be bad. That's all I'm saying. These people who actively worked to get Trump elected by being the most inhuman pieces of shit you possibly could be, and then for them to turn to me, the one that was trying to salvage the fuck-ups that they had continuously layered upon the Democratic Party over and over and over again, for them to turn to me and say, yeah, it's your attitude of, being a human being to people who are actually people, treating people like people. That's what caused us to lose the election. I am going to become the Joker. It will not be okay. I'm angry, gang, if you can't tell. Zephyr Hash for $5. Wick, thanks for having a tangible baseline for supporting a party, treating others like human. Now, if only the other side have a similar baseline. Okay, we got that off of our chest. Today we're going to talk about, American Hegemony. I'm going to bring on my guests, and we'll have the discussion. Cool? Cool. Okay, sorry about that. Had to get something off my chest to my audience for a moment, but I appreciate you giving me a moment in a minute to kind of have that little time with my base. How's everyone doing today? Oh, we're missing one.
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you doing?
Great. Oh, so better until a few moments ago. Yeah.
Crashing out, Wick?
Don't. I'm about to. Paula, don't. Okay, great. You got it. You said it. Awesome. We're here. Excellent. Okay. Okay. You guys ready to start? You ready to do this thing? Everyone okay? Feeling good?
I think so.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ghosty, can we make sure we can hear you?
Oh.
Yeah,
good?
Okay. Just mic checks real quick.
Sorry.
Okay. With that, let's get started. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of Wick TV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Gang, have we a show for you today? Yesterday, in a press conference, Trump mentioned that he would not take military action off the table when it comes to Greenland and the Panama Canal. He's also been making allusions, some say it's jokes, others say it's serious, to perhaps annexing Canada, which brings up the concept that I want to talk about today, which is Pax Americana, American hegemony, a unipolar world order as opposed to a multipolar world order. Has, for the last few decades, America been a unipolar leader in the world? Has that been good for the world overall, or should we move to a more multipolar system? All this and more we're going to talk about, and we have some wonderful guests to talk about it. First, we're going to give the mic to someone who hasn't been here in a while, but we're glad they're back. Corey Campbell, please give us your thoughts.
Is this just introductions and opening statements?
Tell people who you are and what you think of the topic.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And also thank you for the invite. Super grateful to be here and to start off the year to be here. Never take it for granted. But yeah, I'm Corey Campbell. I'm a biochemist. You can find me on Twitch, Corey Campbell 84, Twitter, X, YouTube, Instagram. It's Corey Campbell. And as a Canadian, I'm here to defend Canadian hegemony. Actually, I think the world needs more world leaders willing to do blackface. And I think the United States is taking a step in the right direction in electing a leader that's willing to do orange face. So already copying Canada to some extent. But no. And on a more serious note, just about anything in life, it's never black and white. There have been elements of good of American hegemony, but there have been absolutely, in my mind, elements of bad of American hegemony. And I just, as overall a guiding principle, I think diversity is good. I think when it comes to what you said, a multipolar world, that is what I think is overall good in terms of diversity of viewpoints, both politically, socially, whatever. And I will leave it there for now and cede my time.
Okay, we'll get into it as we go. Admiral Gibbs, what are your thoughts?
In openings, or are we doing
yes. Tell people
both.
who you are. Tell people what you think,
right.
and then we'll get into it.
Sure. I'm Admiral Gibbs. You can find me everywhere as Admiral Gibbs. Before we begin, I think we need to once again acknowledge my skills in prediction. I, the Admiral Gibbs, the political prophet, have been talking about returning the U.S. To empire building for many years, and now the time has arrived. Some people ask me, do you ever get tired of being correct all the time? And the answer is no, because it's so satisfying to see all you lefties co-conceive every time my predictions come true. So as far as we're going, I'm sure we'll get into it. All hail Manifest Destiny 2.0, the Electric Boogaloo. I'm excited for it.
Okay. We'll get into it, I'm sure. Ghosty, what you got?
Hi, Ghosty. The G in Ghosty is spelled with a 6. I'm on YouTube, and I did start a Twitch account, but it's just dedicated to playing chess, so there's that. But as far as the topic goes, I do think as a world leader, with our military, our economy, we do have a responsibility as a great power to use that wisely, and I think we can overstep these boundaries. I think Trump is attempting to do so. But I do think there can be good American hegemony, and we have a responsibility to use that. So, we'll get into the details in the discussion.
Thank you for being here, and we'll get into it as we go. Nonsmoker, how's it going?
Hey, everyone. Twitch.tv/non_smoker. So, I mean, I'm kind of like pretty consistent across the board being an anti-imperialist. I think imperialism is bad. I think it's bad for the world. I actually think American imperialism is bad for Americans. I think we send our men and women off to die in wars that are totally unnecessary for the profit of like billionaires and big business interests. But, I happen to think Trump's rhetoric regarding Greenland, the Panama Canal, Gulf of Mexico, Canada, all this stuff. I mean, Trump is just kind of saying the quiet part out loud. America has had a tendency towards building and maintaining empires since the end of the Cold War. I would argue it really only achieved a unipolar moment after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, which began to wane with the rise of China and Obama's pivot to Asia in 2009. I think unipolarity is kind of a myth. In a sense that there may be a moment where one power achieves supremacy over the rest, but ultimately it will be challenged by another power. That's yet another reason why I think empire building and unipolarity is bad for America. It's a vain endeavor.
Okay, we'll get into it. Last but certainly not least, someone else who hasn't been on my show in a while, but we're glad to have her back. Paula Wright, give us your thoughts.
Paula Wright. Sexy isn't sexist on Twitter, X, and Substack, Dysmamics. I'm coming from this from a kind of international relations realist perspective. And we'll just see how it goes.
Fair enough. I guess that's the first question at hand. So again, when it comes to the Panama Canal, is it something that America should be looking to get back? We gave it away about 40 years ago, 4 decades ago, something like that. Is it something that America has one, the interest? Is it within our interest to reacquire the Panama Canal and control over it? And 2, is it something that is moral to do? That's, I guess, the first question we should ask. What do you guys think?
Well, I want to clarify something because something could be your interest, and you should also not pursue it. Doesn't mean it's morally good to pursue it.
That's
I
why
have
we
many
questioned it
interests.
twice, right? Like
Right.
that's why I've broken it into two
Like,
parts. Yeah.
Yes, it's in America's interest to control all of the world, but is that morally good to do? I would say no. So I think those are like two separate questions. Like just about anything can be argued in your interest.
I don't even think it's a major interest. It's only like 5% of the world's like trading or are trading. I think we would have larger interests to look at, especially with like trade routes like the South China Sea and everything that's going on in Israel and stuff. I don't think the Panama Canal is, I mean, it might be like a smaller secondary issue, but definitely not taking it over, I don't think is a good idea.
I mean, I absolutely disagree with that. The Panama Canal is massive for trade. It's like one of the biggest trade routes in the world. Really, the Panama Canal is the last feather in the cap of the second worst president in the last 75 years, Biden being the worst, of course. It would be Jimmy Carter was an awful president. Let's just get that out of the way. I think the consensus on him at this point, historically, is that he failed at everything he did, even just breathing. He's a terrible, awful president. And I just, whenever he set this up to give the Panama Canal, how did they repay us? They repaid us by letting one of the biggest gangsters of all time take over the canal and take over the country in Noriega, who we ended up having to go and dig out anyway. So whenever we sit here, is it our best interest? Absolutely. We had, I don't know the exact number, but I know a lot of people died that were Americans to build the canal. We just gave it up and gave it to them for basically $1. And now they're sitting here taxing the shit out of us. And they're laughing all the way to the bank like some oil tycoon. And what are we doing? We're going, oh, no. Oh, it'd be too mean to go take back the thing that we built for the betterment of all mankind. It'd be too mean to go take over this country. Absolutely not. It's actually in the best interest of America and the best interest of the world if we take it over, because it's pretty clear to us that all Central American and South American countries are unstable. So for many reasons, we should go take it over.
I just want to clarify something, Gibbs. How do you want to take it over? Just to make it
I
explicitly
was going to
clear.
ask that too.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever. So that includes all.
I mean,
like,
so do you remember? I mean, I'm sure you're not old enough. I'm not old enough either. But like, what happened with Noriega? We rolled in there tomorrow. We'd have the whole country controlled by Friday, and we'd be playing rock music
like Afghanistan.
outside. Yeah, well, hold on. This is not like Afghanistan. We've already taken over Panama once. We know we can do this. It's a small country. They're not
like Afghanistan.
Hold on, there's a small country not with a proud fighting history. It's not like there's a ton of caves for these people to hide in. We literally fought a war there already, and we beat them so bad that we had rock music playing over in front of the presidential palace in 3 days to drive the guys out. Like, yeah, don't act like it's going to be Afghanistan.
And how long ago was this war?
This is like in the 80s, so pretty recent.
Sure, pretty recent. About 40 years ago. And you think there's...
And do you think they're stronger now?
Potentially, yeah. But
you actually, you're like, all right.
Just because something happened in the past doesn't mean you can do it today.
If you think they're equivalent to Afghanistan, you're out of your mind. Like, these people are going to roll over and let us take over. Like they let Noriega take them over.
Yeah, I do want to pass it to Paula. She's been trying to get in, raising her hand, being polite. Go ahead. What do you think?
Yeah. I think what Trump is doing is he's signaling to China, basically, because China's got a lot of interest in the Panama Canal, and has been building. Just let me find my notes up here. I'll find that in a minute. But China is actually mobilizing in the Panama Canal and in Greenland, which is why Trump is interested in those two countries.
When you say mobilizing, what do you mean?
Let me just. Yeah. There's been apparently a bipartisan concern in the US about the increasing Chinese influence in Panama, with Chinese companies controlling key ports and infrastructure along the canal. And if you think about this in a kind of strategic kind of level, this is a pincer movement, really, from China. Encroaching on Americans' borders in the sense that the Biden government has been doing with Russia and Ukraine, and I think Trump is just signaling that he's not going to let that happen. To maintain stability, global stability.
Do you think that's a good way to signal it? To an ally? Do you think Do you think that is an optimal way of signaling to an ally?
An optimal way? I don't know. Well, hang on. China's not an ally.
Panama
I'm
is
talking
an
about,
ally.
I talk about Panama, like Greenland. Do you think this is a good way to treat your allies?
I mean, is Panama our ally? Like, it
Yes.
seems like they're just ripping us off. Like, that's what it seems like.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like rob my friends at gunpoint and then tell everybody, hey, that's my homie.
Okay,
That's what they're doing. Like, I mean,
is Greenland an ally then? Is Denmark an ally?
what has Greenland done?
What
Has
they are
Greenland's
are
done
well,
nothing.
well,
There's,
well,
like,
I'm finished
One
my
at,
point
oh,
politically.
yeah, one at a time, one at a time.
there's more
what they
cows
are
than people in
prime
Greenland.
Okay.
political real estate.
Well,
And in the balance of global power, all states need to maintain stability and guard their borders. The whole reason that Russia's gone to war with Ukraine is because NATO was encroaching on its border. And so Trump
True.
is actually, in this sense, just trying to waylay that.
Non-smoker, you've been trying to get in. Go ahead.
yeah, no. So I mean, two things. One, I think the reason, I know that wasn't necessarily part of the question, but I think the interest in the Panama Canal and Greenland for Trump anyway is to offset the potential costs of a trade war with China. Trump seems to think that a trade war with China is the best way to resolve the trade deficit. And that would mean tariffs, which of course would raise the cost of goods for American consumers. So controlling the Panama Canal and Greenland, that would be for Greenland a source for rare earth minerals, and then with the Panama Canal, it would reduce the cost of trade there, grease the supply chain for us, so it would offset the cost of the trade war. I think that's the thinking behind this. But moving past that, I mean, America quite simply has to decide whether we believe in sovereignty or we don't. We were very quick to condemn Putin's invasion, commit hundreds of billions of dollars to helping the Ukrainians fight, the Russians. We've, condemned Hamas's actions. We've condemned, many different instances of one state hostile actions towards another. How can we, on the one hand, say that and then go in and just simply take aggressively the Panama Canal from Panama just because it would benefit us? A lot of things would benefit us. We could, invade X number of countries for other resources. There's a reason we don't, because we purport to care about sovereignty. So if we decide we don't care about sovereignty, then I don't see how we could continue to fight Putin or any other power.
I would like to add on to that a little
ahead,
bit as
Ghosty,
well
please.
with the trade agreement or the trade wars idea. This is where Canada comes in also, because Canada is one of our largest exports of and our largest imports of natural resources. And with the tariffs we're planning to add on to them, and they're considering retaliatory tariffs. Greenland has a ton of natural resources and minerals for energy resources. And I think it's funny, this it also opens up large trade routes due to global warming, which is something that Trump has denied for such a long time. And now the reason he's interested in it is because it will open up so many trade routes because of global warming. But I think this is what, I'm sorry, I forget your name, the man who just spoke.
Non-smoker.
Okay, non-smoker, yeah. This is to balance out all of basically what I consider the fuck-ups Trump is going to deal with his administration.
I want to reject this idea that we're not playing by the status quo, right? We played by this old Pax Americana for years. We have, what do we call it, neo-colonialism or neo-imperialism, where we set up a government and they were tangentially our friend, and then oh Lord, it fell apart, and because we pulled out all the troops and all these things. I mean, if we look at Russia and China with what they've done with Nepal and what Russia's done with Ukraine, it's pretty clear that all that shit's out the window now, and we're back to what's worked for the last 10,000, 30,000 years, which is imperialism. Is they go in and take the shit, right? I don't know why Jimmy Carter had the bright idea back in the day to give Panama Canal their thing back, but it took us, to answer Corey's question, no, it won't be like Afghanistan. In December 1989, we took over the entirety of Panama in 5 days, and all the people were outside oh, we're your bitch. That quick. It's not going to be like Afghanistan. They're going to roll over and play dead, and whatever. And if they don't, then they will send in the B-52s. Either way, problem solved, and then we'll still keep the canal. And then guess what? We got trade shipping, and it's good for everybody. Because you know what? What's good for China is not what's good for the rest of the world. American culture is the best culture, and I'm sick of pretending sometimes. Sometimes, listen, I'm sick of pretending there's some cultures that aren't good or bad. The Aztecs, they were cannibals, and they're sacrificed people. It was good when the Spanish took them out. You know what? Same thing here. The commies over in China, they're bad. Let's take them out.
What happened to the No New Wars president that he ran
this
on
will
his
be a war.
entire campaign? No new wars, and now we just want to take over fucking Greenland, Canada, the
It
Canada.
won't be a war. It'll be an ass whipping.
He said he will use military.
It just redefines things the way that he wants, whatever's
These-
expedient for him. That's
Yeah,
it.
these places aren't
Sure.
for sale.
That's what we all do, though.
Nobody wants to sell them. He wants to forcibly take them over.
Who built the Panama Canal?
We helped build it.
No. Who? We didn't help build it. We
Okay,
built it after
we
the French
largely
failed.
contributed to
Yeah,
it, but it's
like
Panama's
90%.
now.
Oh, it's Panama's now. So, do you agree that like, say someone cuts you an unfair deal because you have like I don't know.
Say something.
My internet died.
Okay.
Everything you just said in the last 30 seconds, no one heard because
Shit.
my
It was all
internet-
slurs anyways.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Sorry, I apologize. I don't know why it died for a moment, but it did, and here we are. Last I heard, we were arguing over who built the canal. I do want to kind of bring this. I want to ask about something Nonsmoker said, the idea of sovereignty. Is that something... When is it okay to violate another country's sovereignty? I guess would be the question. What do we think? Let's give it to Paula first, and then I want to hear everyone's answer.
Okay, so since the Second World War, and especially since the fall of the Soviet Union, America has pursued what's called a liberal progressivism, which is about spreading liberal democracy, American liberal democracy, around the world, and it has had the power to do that, and it's done it in very immoral ways. It's actually realism is the opposite of and does value sovereignty, but liberal progressivism has used realist tactics, which are basically just brute power, to spread democracy, right? Which is obviously a paradox. Trump, I think, is taking on a much more kind of realist perspective, which is about, well, it's about, it's, let me just, it's about, maintaining not a kind of Pax Americana, but basically each independent country's own interests, and promoting self-interest there. And in Europe, which is why he's talking about taking the troops out of Germany and stuff like that, and rebuilding the military infrastructure in Europe, so that they're not kind of passing the buck financially to the States, and then the States can actually then put their resources into their own borders, which are, from China's perspective, from the encroaching China perspective, are Greenland and South America and the Panama Canal, because that's where China is putting a huge amount of resources in there. Okay. So I mean, I think we need to see past the rhetoric. This is all. These are negotiations. He's not going to go to war unless there's an encroachment, but he's just basically laying out the groundwork and saying, these are our red lines. That's what I'm.
What do we think of that, gang?
I think it's a bit of a cop out.
Well, okay, yeah. I'll promise I'll make it quick. I mean, I'm going to try to weave together this a little bit. Yeah. So look, Wilsonian liberalism, right? Like, basically the idea is that the more liberal democracies there are in the world will be a far more peaceful place. And the line of thinking is that liberal democracies are less aggressive than authoritarian regimes. And so if you remove authoritarian regimes, replace them with liberal democracies, even if you do so through warfare, ultimately it will lead to a more peaceful, harmonious world. It's just been proven to be kind of false. I mean, you look at Iraq, you look at Afghanistan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's interesting, like what Gibbs is saying, I kind of agree with him, that actually I think the default foreign policy stance for the last century in America has really been, let's build a Pax Americana. There needs to be powers in the world. We're the greatest power, and the world under our reign will be much safer and much more harmonious than it would be under the reign of the Soviet Union or China or whatever. And I would say that we've been the preeminent power in the world. I wouldn't call us a unipole. There have been other powers that have, come close to us or attempted to oppose us. But I would say under our reign, there's been tons of violence, chaos, and disorder. And that's just sort of how international relations are. It's a kind of anarchy, right? There's clashing, countries have their own interests, etc. So, with all that said, us taking the Panama Canal, it would sort of on the surface betray that whole line of thinking. America believes in sovereignty. We want to protect every nation's sovereignty. And it would reveal the truth that we don't really give a fuck about sovereignty. We just want to be a much more powerful country, and we think we deserve to rule the world. I would say we don't deserve to rule the fucking world. Nobody deserves to rule the world. Every state should have its own. Every state should have sovereignty. We should seek for a world of cooperation, not violent competition.
Yeah, I mean that has been the situation in America since Roosevelt and since 1989 when the Berlin Wall finished, and it's gotten us basically. I think the atomic clock is 90 seconds to midnight, and we're the closest to kind of nuclear annihilation than we ever have been since they set that up. And I think the Trump's realism project, regardless of the rhetoric, is resetting that and focusing more on pragmatic and strategic considerations, over these kind of broad ideological moral ones, saying yes, if we spread liberal democracy, it'll be a peaceful world. As you say, it's proven not to be true at all. So looking at this kind of situation much more realistically and understanding that each state, it's a fluid, and as you say, the international system is archaic. There's no overarching authority above states, above single states, and each state operates within a system, a self-help system, where its own security is its primary concern.
I do want to jump in here for a little, because Nonsmoker, respectfully, I just frankly disagree with you. If we take the last 50 years of history, it has been more peaceful than any other time in human history, at least recorded history. It has been one of the most stable, right? Showing human flourishing has increased
in America
across the board, worldwide, globally, right?
It resulted in like the UN. The UN is like a good thing.
Don't hurt my point.
Amen.
Okay,
we agree on that too.
I mean, it's initial like.
But also, if I may finish, right? Like Trump, I don't consider these pragmatic. For example, he wants to rename the Gulf of Mexico Gulf of America. How is that pragmatic? How is that pragmatic?
I love it. I think it should have done it a long time ago. What has Mexico done? They ain't done shit. I mean, but like, I'll tell you what's pragmatic. Ghosty here said, "Oh, we're only 5% of the world trade." Well, I just did a quick Google search, and she's correct. We're only 5% of world trade. But this shows how much Panama is fucking the U.S. Because you know how much U.S. shipping containers go through Panama? 40%. So we're just giving them money hand over fist left and right, and they're just straight fucking us no lube, and we're supposed to sit here and act like it's great. No, I'm sorry. I'm not cool with that.
So how are they fucking us? Like,
because they're charging us outrageous prices on something we built and for them. If anything, they should be giving us the freeway because we built this for them. Had like thousands of people die to malaria and shit building this over the long period of time it took. And then we had the worst president in the last 75 years, Jimmy Carter, somehow dangle his old ball sack and say, "Hey, it's a good idea to give them this fucking thing back for like pennies on the dollar." And then now they just turned around and said, "Ha ha ha ha." And fucked us. And like y'all like, it's okay. Like I love this like bleeding heart lefty spiel where y'all go, "Oh, everybody deserves to be a country. Everybody's equally right." And then like y'all don't practice that at home. Y'all speak outrage to anybody that disagrees with your beliefs. And then when we're like, okay, let's do this on a foreign policy scale, y'all suddenly are like, "Oh wow, multipolarity, good. It's so good to help these people fuck us more." Like that's crazy.
Okay. Gibbs, just to clarify, I don't actually know. Maybe you know, but how much money does the United States contribute to maintaining the Panama Canal each year?
I have no idea off the top of my head, but I mean, I didn't look that up. But
I can find out
So-
while you guys talk, but continue.
I'm
your
pretty sure
point.
it's probably close to zero or nothing.
Sorry.
And so don't you think that Panama actually maintaining it, I'm assuming, I could be wrong, but I'm assuming they economically contribute to maintain the Panama Canal? Isn't that a cost to them?
Well, bro, okay. How much do you think it cost? I just did a quick Google search. It says 350 million is what it is. What maintenance works cost. And I just
Wait, maintenance per year?
Yeah, and you know what it looked like they make per year? They make billions per year. So
Can
like
you
200
can you send me that source?
Yeah, sure. It's expiration jargon. Here you go. Copy link.
Just while you're looking for that, Gibbs, I think
Can
you'll be
I-
horrified to learn that you're actually promoting a progressive perspective there. A liberal progressive perspective.
How do you figure? What do you figure? I mean, I'm not. I mean,
just when you said before, America is the greatest, and liberal democracy is the greatest, and the world should have it. That is basically the FDR kind of progressive model.
well, sure. If that's how you want to frame it, I mean, sure. I mean, things shift over time. I've been neocon. I've always been an interventionist. I like American intervention. I've been pro empire building. I think some of our greatest mistakes were giving back Japan, giving back South Korea, leaving Afghanistan. We should just stay there and fought it out. Instead, all these times we always go in there, build these places up, let them go, and then what happens? Most of the time they turn out badly, except for Japan, South Korea, which they could be now are states of ours.
We have
It'd be
allies.
wonderful.
It makes allies.
Why
so
is that better? Why are allies better than us?
So we
being in
have
charge?
trading, so that we have good
We can't trade
trading.
between states.
If we're not allies with them, it just makes things smoother.
Well, okay, we own Japan basically. After
This is
World
why
War II. Do you
maybe
agree?
the UN is fucked up, but I do think the
Well,
initial
okay, tell me
creation
why
of it
it's-
is for international cooperation, so that we don't have to fight these things through war.
Okay,
We fight
Ghosty,
these
let me
things
ask
through
you
law
this.
and shit.
Let me ask you this, Ghosty. All right, so we fought a war. It was World War II. You remember that one, big one, right? We owned Japan, right? Basically, we owned South Korea. Now they've been rebuilt using U.S. taxpayer dollars. Now they're all our besties, our homies, etc., etc. Now, since they're our allies, in theory, they can decide they want to turn around and do what Panama's doing and fuck us if they wanted to, whatever. Why is it better to let them have their own power after we spent blood, sweat, and tears conquering these places and over here rebuilding them to making them nice? Why is it better to suddenly just go, you know what, y'all do what y'all want now. Hopefully y'all look out for our interests too, as opposed to we own y'all now. Now we're all going to trade within the sphere of the United States, and everybody's going to have a little democracy and going to say, why is that better?
Because that means an all-out war with all
It's
of
already
these
happened in World War
nations.
II. It already happened in World War II. We already owned them. What do you mean?
America didn't rebuild them out of the goodness of their heart. America rebuilt in
Right.
very strategic places because they are high, retail, places.
Yeah, but that's
America
fine.
spent so much money kind of in Germany, but didn't do that in Poland, didn't do that in the rest of it, because Germany is the center, is that very strategic center of Europe that it needed to do that on, not the rest of Europe.
I mean,
It goes into places and rebuilds them because this is the balance of power. It needs to have bases there.
we
it's
want
just-
good relations in the Middle East, not because it's just the kindness of our hearts to help the Middle East. It's because we want their oil. So we want good relations with these countries that benefit us, and it's fine to have. I just think having allies and international cooperation versus an all-out war and literally taking over these countries.
Yeah, but we already own these countries. I get what you're saying, right? Going and taking Panama would be us taking over a new country. What is your excuse for saying, if say Japan tomorrow said, "Fuck America, we're teaming up with China." We spent the time investing in building there. Now I know this won't happen, but let's just hypothetically, they could, because they're their own democratically elected country. They have their own, stands on stuff. They have their own issues. Tomorrow, for example, they could. Now I know they won't, but they could say, "Fuck America." Now, why do you think it's better for them to have that option than for us to go, "We fought you. We already beat you. We rebuilt you. Now you're our bitch, and all your people can be our citizens, and you can be a state, and we can trade with the other states freely"? Why is that? Why is what you propose?
Hold on, Admiral
better?
Gibbs, are you seriously suggesting we make Japan a state?
I think we shouldn't have ever let them go. We should have kept them. We shouldn't let the Philippines go. We shouldn't let Japan go. Any of the other countries in Europe, we wouldn't even need NATO, because guess what? It'd be a whole different world. We rebuilt them all. It was our funding that's built it.
I think the view of the foreign policy establishment post Cold War anyway was that It was
Also,
better
sorry,
to
I'm sorry,
have-
I just have to like the idea of Japan teaming up with China is
Yeah,
they
sure.
hate each other, right?
Yeah.
They,
Sure, that's
you
why I
you
said that's
understand
not
that, right?
likely.
Well,
They
not
are not
likely.
friends.
Hold
They
Sure, I
don't.
know that's not
They
likely,
don't.
but they could,
They
like,
don't
hypothetically.
forget what happened in World War II, right?
Yeah.
The rape
I
of
understand
Nanking
that.
is still
Okay,
a
but,
big
look,
deal.
But I mean, but Vietnam, for example, Vietnam's our
Right.
enemy.
This is
Like,
this is very stupid framing. Here's why, and it's not that you're stupid, Gibbs. It's just
It's not.
here's what I mean. The reason that we didn't incorporate all of these territories into like a large scale empire is because I think the American foreign policy establishment kind of realized, hey, it's a lot easier to build like an informal network, economic network, and with exclusive trade relationships than it is to just dominate other countries. So, in other words, like we do our part to establish liberal democracy in a country like Japan. We help build up their infrastructure. They, use capitalist economic model to produce lots of goods for cheap, and then we're a consumer market for those goods. And that's a much more effective way to have a relationship with the Japanese than to just annex them and force them to be like the 51st state. And I think that that's the reality of the American empire in the 20th and 21st centuries, is that it's an empire that's really this complex economic network rather than formal domination. And I think, even though I have a lot of criticisms of that, ultimately it's a much more peaceful, sustainable model than the old system of like, let's just take as much territory with hostile power or threat of hostile force as possible. If we did that to the Japanese, it actually stands to reason that they might turn on us at some point.
Or
Also,
they
like,
could
where's all
integrate.
this talk of like Americans first? Like, we can't even take care of our own people. Now we want to take on freaking Greenland and Panama and Canada. Like, shouldn't we be focusing on taking care
Well,
of
no,
our
this
own
is
country?
Americans first. This is Americans first. Like
He
I
just means
just
the
said.
whole world,
Hold on.
America.
No, well, that would be great. But listen, this is Americans first. Panama's fucking Americans. They're fucking them, right?
How?
Like 40,000 for 40% of their shipping of the U.S. shipping goes through Panama. So that number we talked about earlier.
He
You know what?
maintains canal.
Hold
Well,
on,
that's what
hold
I'm
on. To
asking.
answer your question, Corey.
Yes, answer it.
We are paying to maintain it, and then they're getting several billion through 40% of the shipping that goes through is ours. So like what I'm saying is, if we go sit here, we go, hey, we're paying for it. They're getting billions of dollars on top of what it needs to maintain, right? Like, you know how we're looking out for American first? We cut all that out. All that money can go back, be saved for American consumers and American producers by like not having to pay what's essentially an unfair tax because we're the ones who use this canal the most.
How is it unfair? Just
It's
because,
ridiculous.
yes, if they control that territory, it's sovereign to them. Like, why should it not be to their economic benefit? Why does it have to? Who cares if they're making billions
Okay,
of
well,
dollars?
so, all right, so
Control it.
I love this idea, dude. Like Russia and China, like I said, have proved that imperialism's back. They're just taking over shit, and they're just using whatever like they need as an
What
idea
is
to
China
justify it.
taking over?
I mean, Nepal might have heard of it. Kind of a big deal. Like, Dalai Lama, there's a reason why he's not there. Remember that guy?
Recently?
Okay, fairly recently. I'm saying in geopolitical terms.
China's a
Like,
The
slave state.
Diaoyu Islands are a thing that's
China's
under.
not a slave state. That's fucking insane.
No, it
I don't
is.
know about
It's
China being a
because-
slave state.
yeah.
That's not what. But they've taken over shit. Russia's taken over stuff in Ukraine. They came up with, there used to be ethnic Ukrainians there. They can just come up with any fugazi reason and dress it up and use an excuse. We built the canal. There's our reason. We go over there. We take it. It's ours. Great. We get the benefit economically. That people get the benefit there from being American citizens. Wonderful. Love it. It's probably much better than living over the next drug lord back to
I mean,
Canada.
it sounds reactive to me, and in my view, I mean, I'm not even like a liberal like that, but it sounds sort of like we're responding from a position of like weakness and fear. If the logic
power.
is, well, Russia's aggressive and China's aggressive, so we have to be equally aggressive using military.
Why do you want us to
force,
play
you
with
know?
our hand behind our back? You want us to fight these battles with our hands?
I
behind our back
actually
dramatically?
look. I mean, I kind of see somewhat of your point. Okay, let me ask you this, Gibbs. Do you support tariffs?
I mean, I support any tool that benefits us, and if you could like tariffs,
So,
improve it.
Well, not
it's
tariffs.
kind of it really that's not
I mean,
like
that's debatable.
okay, it depends whether or not it depends how you view things, whether or not you think it benefits us. But what's your position? Do you
Like,
support tariffs or not?
I support them situationally, right? Like, I think that it might not benefit us economically necessarily in some scenarios. However,
So
it might.
America
It
placing
might.
tariffs on China.
But it might be. It might. Yeah, I think that China's been taking advantage of the same way Panama's been taking advantage. Just like, but you can use tariffs for other things. Like he threatened Mexico with tariffs, and now Mexico seems to be acquiescing to what his demands were and saying, "Okay, we will play the game you want to play. Don't put the tariffs on us." And so I think they're a tool in your diplomatic arsenal. So it depends if I think it's good for each situation.
Yeah, I ask because okay, your position is sort of that Panama taxing us for using the canal is, as you say it, fucking us. So I would say, well, in your view, is it justified for America to fuck other countries with tariffs? It sounds like you would say yes.
Yeah,
And then I would
absolutely.
argue, well, now you're kind of setting up a climate where the incentive is for all the players to just try to fuck each other, which is
Well, that's what
probably
there's
going to
already
end up
happening.
catastrophic.
No, that's already
Well,
what's happening,
I
and we're the only
do.
ones not playing the game.
Yeah, I do want to broaden the conversation a bit, right, and kind of get a little more people in here. But I guess the question I have asked to maybe drive this conversation forward a bit, realistically, what do we think the chances of Trump actually doing any of this are, right? If we had to put a number on it, what do we think? Are we thinking 10% chance? Are we thinking 80% chance? What are our thoughts here? Go ahead.
I think probably single-digit percentage, close to. But I agree, it's probably largely rhetoric, but I think that's bad rhetoric. I think the whole talking point of he's establishing red lines is just really stupid. There are ways of establishing red lines without pretty much going after your allies.
Can you give us an example then? If you don't like how Trump is doing it, could you give us an example of how you would do it? Go ahead.
Well, I'm not a politician, so I don't have.
Okay, but how would you like to see it done?
There's a way. I'm pretty sure he can avoid saying annexing Canada or making Canada the 51st state. I'm pretty sure that can be avoided. The same thing with even just him committing, say, yeah, we will not commit to military action, or rather, yeah, we would not go that far. I think that's also.
You can't say that. If you think about it, it's less about aggression, but it most definitely is about power. You cannot, put all your cards on the table and rule out aggression if China. So China is kind of building airports and dual use kind of structures and facilities in Greenland. It's, as I said, it's kind of building infrastructure around the Panama Canal. And it is America first, because Trump is trying to secure the border, an American border, in not just on the Mexican line, but in a greater kind of global line. He's trying to kind of shore up those things, and he has to do it with power, and the threat of aggression has to be there as a rhetorical tool.
But Greenland is an ally, so why wouldn't we just invest in putting plants there ourselves too, if that's the issue?
Well, we can do that as well, but the thing is, there's certain things that China are doing. They're building strategic infrastructure. They're building a Greenlandic airport project. And what the Americans are worried about is this thing called debt trap diplomacy, where all these things are being built. Greenland is borrowing money from China that it probably can't pay back, and then their bargaining tool is, well, you can't pay us back, so then we can bargain with you to kind of have a military presence there. And we have to think. In chess, you have to think about 10 moves ahead of what's actually happening now.
So I guess the question becomes, right? Because again, rhetoric, forceful rhetoric and things, how are we going to get, this is something we talked about a little bit a few days ago, when it comes to getting people to trust you, right? How are they ever going to trust you if this is how you treat their allies? How are we going to have other countries who are incompetent, like China and Russia, are attempting to influence places like India and these other countries, right? That Saudi Arabia, Israel, Lebanon, all these. We're all in this competition for influence. So if we are threatening our allies, why would another country such as India or Thailand or whatever, right, want to throw in their lot with us, knowing that they're just going to get bullied? Why not go for the carrot instead of the stick? Can you elaborate?
Well,
Can you elaborate on that? You said they're not playing the same game. What do you mean?
No, they are playing the same game. They're all playing the same game. All states are basically. Let me just it's the key principles of realism is that power is the main currency, and states are seeking to accumulate power to secure their position and deter threats. Okay, so everybody's doing that, and through this kind of interplay of cooperation and competition, there becomes a kind of an equilibrium, and it's not based on airy-fairy kind of ideas of liberal democracy is moral and all this kind of thing, because we've already seen from the US, and the way that they have promoted liberal democracy around the world, it isn't moral. And as I said before, you said the world's been peaceful and the standard of living.
Well,
we
no,
are 90
we
seconds.
are in the most peaceful.
We are 90 seconds to midnight.
Sure, but that's due to technology in a lot of cases, because we have now more destructive weapons. So if a world war was to break out today,
well, sure,
it would be far more destructive than any
then.
other place, right? But I guess when I say peaceful, I don't mean like that there's all peace all over the world. I mean like compared to before American hegemony, right, existed, before we had the unipolar world, the world was more chaotic. Now,
is that not down to technology?
That also is down to technology. Yes, that both of these things.
Yeah,
are true.
I would push back on that whole notion also, that the unipolar world has made everything more safe. I mean, I don't think
comparatively, yes.
Well, the unipolar world meaning what? I mean, like I would say, our unipolar moment was at the collapse of the Soviet Union. Would you go back further than that, or would you just?
I think that's when it coalesced. But I think that the Soviet Union had been kind of toothless even before that for a few years. But that's close enough, right? That's close enough for the discussion purposes. I would say personally that one of the ways that a unipolar world has made the world safer is I'll give trade routes as an example. And I know we had a debate on this with Destiny actually, regards to Houthis. The fact that America guarantees basically safe passage for transit for trade ships and other things, increases nation-to-nation trade, which does promote peace. It does. And I think that the fact that we have a power on Earth that is able to do that unilaterally is, again, a force for stability and force for peace. But I want to push back a little bit on, and I see you guys, the rest of you, and I want to get you in here. But Paula, you said something, right? Earlier, that it's about like realistic power, and I agree. But part of that realistic power is if Canada is being threatened by one country, they will turn to those countries' enemies and look to strengthen their relationships with them in order to protect them from the country that is being bellicose against them. So one of the risks with threats and rhetorical threats is you drive your potential ally into the hands of your enemy. So Canada starts, well, you're not going to make deals with us. You're going to threaten our borders. China, Russia, what are your deals looking like? Do you think you can help us out? Right?
They're already doing that, Wick. China and Russia are already floating ships off the water. They're already threatening them. I don't know. Like, this is kind of what I think Ms. Wright down here was saying, is that they're already playing one game. We're playing a totally different game, and what we're doing is we're taking their hand, we're handcuffing ourselves behind their back, and then we're trying to go here and say, oh, we respect all this sovereignty, we respect all these things, and none of the other people that are vying for, like, to be equal to the U.S. are doing this, right? Like, India's not doing this. They're over there taking land from Pakistan. China's over there taking land. Russia's taking land. China's even building military bases in disputed ocean, calling it theirs and stuff, and, like, they're fighting the Philippines, like, regularly. Like, all these ideas that, like, I think that it has been safer, per se, for the last 50 years, Wick. I think technically you're right. However, I don't think that that's necessarily a good thing. All we've done now is let these people load up their arsenals and show that we're not actually willing to go in there and embrace the real imperialism, and we're going to back down and only give these people piecemeal support instead of coming in there and conquer them, because we don't really actually believe in imperialism. We believe in neo-colonialism or neo-imperialism, which is, to Nonsmoker's point, basically us tucking our dip back and taping it and go, we're the world's preeminent superpower militarily, but we're going to play world police instead of actually using it to benefit Americans. And so we play at a disadvantage at all times.
Sorry, Wick, what was your question again?
Okay, so my question to you was, do you not recognize the risk of rhetorical threats to potential allies such as Denmark, Denmark in regards to Greenland? If you guys don't know, Denmark and Greenland, their thing, to the Panama Canal and to Canada, that we risk strengthening their relations with our enemies, such as China. Like if China came out today, if I may finish, if China came out, if I may finish, just real quick, if in response to Trump saying we're going to take Panama Canal whether they like it or not, Panama turns to China and says, can you guarantee that you will promise to kind of guarantee our sovereignty here? And China says, yes, actually, we will. And suddenly they have better deals. Suddenly they cut off access. Suddenly, if we go to war with Panama, it's not just war with Panama. Now we're at war with China. I do you not see the risk there? Go ahead.
Because what do you think we have been doing already? Just because Trump is saying these things out loud as bellicose rhetoric doesn't. America has waged war. While it's been kind of like out of one side of its mouth saying that it cares about country's sovereignty, and it cares about women's rights, and it cares about all these things, and then it goes to war with states, even without kind of the permission from the UN. It's more about actions, not words. What they'll do, what politically what they'll do is they'll come and talk to him. It's like when Trump with Canada, immediately Canada comes and talks to him because Trump starts up here and he negotiates down. That's I don't think it's not realistic to say that just because he's saying it out loud, that this hasn't been going on in much more nefarious ways for the last 50 years.
But that's not his question, though. His question is then what stops, I think, countries like Canada and Panama from going to the enemies of the United States and forming alliances with them. At least that's how I understood your question.
The enemies of the United States are not there for, China will say, oh yes, we'll guarantee your sovereignty, but they're not stupid. China won't guarantee them their sovereignty. Nobody will guarantee them their sovereignty. Nobody will guarantee anybody.
I mean, if America is violating their sovereignty violently, maybe the Chinese could at least guarantee that they won't do that.
China can't guarantee shit in the Western Hemisphere. Let me tell you that. If we're not going to go to war with China, if we take over Panama in 5 days like we did in the 90s. Like y'all are sitting here, I just love this comparison you made earlier with Afghanistan. Because we took over Panama in 5 days without the tech we have now.
Okay.
Like, bro, Panama would be our bitch. China wouldn't do shit. It's that simple.
I would agree.
I know you said Western Hemisphere, but can I give you a comparison?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
So, like Wick brought up the Houthi debate, which you could find on YouTube, by the way. Me and Destiny and Wick and Alistair the Great. But anyway, so part of the thinking with the strikes on the Houthis was that, the U.S., through violent coercion, can guarantee, safe passage through the Red Sea for shipping vessels. The Chinese have actually taken a very different approach on the matter. They're actually helping the Houthis obtain weapons in exchange for safe Red Sea passage. My point being that there can actually be multiple approaches to the same problem by great powers. So there's no reason to assume that if we violently try to infringe on Panama's sovereignty, that the Chinese couldn't offer them some sort of deal or bargain where their sovereignty is maintained, and thus they'll want to move towards the Chinese orbit and away from the American one.
They're already working with China. More. Isn't that the whole? So they're gonna
hold on. That's the accusation, but whether or not that's true, like they have the president of Panama. What's his name? I have it here. Hold on one second. I'm not gonna Fernandez. Okay. Hold on. Isn't. You know what? Forget his name. The president of Panama has denied Chinese influence and interference. He says it's not happening.
Well, of course he is, because we're about to hit him with this big old stick. Like I would probably say that too if I was him. Actually, Nonsmoker actually made a very good point here. But but for my side, and this is, he said, agreed. China's going to go take a different route, do whatever thinks benefits them, and they're going to go fund our enemies. These countries are funding our enemies. We got to do something now and stop playing the game like the way we're like we think it should be played. Everybody else doesn't have any rules. We're the only ones with rules, and when we go in there, we keep like handicapping ourselves with like foreign policy. All these other countries are going to keep taking advantage, just like China giving weapons to the Houthis. Now they have a new client to sell weapons to. Now they can unstabilize trade worldwide. Now they can make America look bad. You're absolutely correct. Great powers have different agendas, and
Gibbs.
America is the best way to ensure it is we take over the shit.
Gibbs, you say all these countries are funding your enemies. Are you saying the United States doesn't fund its own enemies? Are you saying it has no economic ties with China? Is China an enemy or not in your eyes?
That's part of why Trump wants to do a trade war with them now, isn't it?
We have
Okay,
the greatest economy. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Corey.
No, I was going to say, so then you would want the United States to cut off all ties economically with China, like no movies there, no games there.
The problem with that is
no Tesla factories there.
The problem with that is it totally crashes.
Okay.
We do need to withdraw. Hold on. You're actually
so you're fun.
Hold on.
Is that not funding your enemies? Is that not funding your enemies?
Well, it's not either or. Yeah, it is.
Oh, now there's nuance.
Hold on. There is funding your enemies, and that's why Trump wants a trade war with them, because he says they're fucking us. Like, I mean, you're not going to sit here. You can't sit here on one hand and go, "Oh, we're funding them," and then Trump say, "We need to trade more. We need to be more aggressive militarily with these other countries. We need to secure these things," and then you go, "Oh, but you're funding them." Yeah, of course. And he wants to pull us back from that. Like, so yeah, you're right, and he recognizes that that's what's happening, and he's pulling us away from him. So. Point us.
I want to give Corey a chance.
Trump's never said he wants to take away Panama's sovereignty. He just wants to retake the Panama Canal.
But it's not for sale.
Yeah, I don't think that you can have one and not the other.
Well, we did. Yeah.
I mean, it's like the size of Rhode Island.
The world's a different place now. The world's a very different place now. You can't really put the toothpaste back in the tube on that one. You can't just say, "Well, we had it before, we want it back." And the Panamanians.
Well, Russia did that.
Okay.
Russia did that with Ukraine. Why can't we do it?
But it's resulted in
Russia doing that with Ukraine was wrong, was bad. To be clear.
Well, listen, but okay, that's my point. This is all icky, Wick. It's all icky, right? But like, I'm sorry that it's icky, but like, if you're actual world power, sometimes you got to get icky. And like, in order to best look out for your best interest long term, and like, we got to get over this idea that just because something might be like morally gray, like that means don't do it. Sometimes we have to do the hard thing. Otherwise, we're going to let these other countries take over.
I am
and then
not
guess what? We're all gonna be
convinced it is in our best interest to annex Panama in order to get back the Panama Canal. I am not convinced that will make us more secure. In fact, that will deter other countries from ever making any deals with us. Why would they, when they know 10, 20 years down the line, some other president's going to get elected and say that deal was shit, we're going to take it back by force? Why would they ever work with us again? Obeying the law, right? Obeying
but they have friends that do
an international order has a large benefit to our country.
Hold on, so Wick, so how come all these countries do business with Russia and China? Like, if what they're doing is so terrible and reprehensible, all these other countries are doing business with them. India's doing business with both of them. They're like the next giant market. So like, everything you said is unequivocally not true, because countries are already doing business with these other countries that you're saying, oh, it's doing the wrong thing. So
you don't think Russia's faced massive consequences from this?
I mean, I also think part of China. I think part of China's leverage in places like Africa, especially, is that they don't try to export their political system and they don't use violent coercion. They go in there and they economically develop these countries. They build up infrastructure, etc. That's what makes Chinese investment so appealing, as opposed to the American system of exporting our ideology through NGOs or even through violent coercion at times. I think us, in the instances where we have intervened violently, i.e. Iraq, Afghanistan, it's actually done a lot to hurt our image internationally and caused, I think, some countries to feel less comfortable doing business with us. At the end of the day, though, they kind of have to, because we're the world's preeminent economic power, in addition to being the world's preeminent military power. But I guess my point is, we've sort of given China some leverage here. If your view is America first and you want us as the unipolar, hegemon, why would you do things that will build up China's legitimacy and hurt ours?
I disagree with all of
this. This is one of the few instances I will say non-smoker is just correct.
No, you're not correct. If you just look at Africa. Africa, they started off with the carrot, and now they have the stick. There's like evidence of Chinese racism, military bases being built, and they're throwing these people out in droves. I mean, I can leak like if you go just look up Chinese racism with Africa, you can look and see where they threw out thousands of people on the street that had already paid their rents, and like then built military bases nearby. Like this is all sorts of this is running rampant. So like y'all are acting like China's just everybody's best friend. Like
I'm not saying that they
China's
aren't.
being aggressor all the
No,
time.
I'm
We're
not
the only
saying
ones
that
pretending
they.
that we like do
I'm
one
not
thing
saying
and they
that
do another.
there aren't instances of racism and that there isn't a degree of exploitation. Of course there is. Why would the Chinese be interested in investing in Africa if they didn't stand to gain something from it?
Wait,
What
so
I'm
you're lauding
suggesting,
them for doing this and being
no,
correct
I'm
and
not lauding
successful,
them.
but then you're
I'm not
saying that,
lauding them.
oh, like
No,
it's
I'm
bad
not
if we
lauding
do
them.
it?
You're not understanding my point. I'm
Well, I
not lauding
understand it.
them. What I'm saying is that we've given China leverage in Africa as a result of us being too quick to the trigger in other places in the world. And now there are parts of the
Yes.
world that are developing economies that would rather do business with China than us.
That and to be clear for the people coming after me in my chat, that's what I mean when I say he's correct. I don't mean about his other takes. That take right there at the end. But I do want to make some money, so let me read some super chats, gang. And thank you for the super chats. Thank you for contributing to the show. It's how we keep the lights on, gang. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button. Give me more money. It's always helpful. Let me get through these real quick, and then we'll continue our discussion. $5 for Zephyr Hash. At least all that money will stay in North America instead of languishing in Ukraine, being used for sickening purposes like protecting the innocent. Thank you for the $5. $2 Canadian dollars from Testicle Johnson. Hands off my maple syrup meal team 6. Thank you for the $2.
That's based.
$5 more from Zephyr Hash. I like our peaceful ways so much that the whole world must learn our peaceful ways by force. $5 from another new account. It hasn't been perfect, but consider the countries that exist today because of American intervention. South Korea, Taiwan, Kuwait, etc. Thank you for the $5. 5 more Canadian dollars from Testicle Johnson. How expensive to maintain other states? How long before boots on the ground? How long before an occupying force? And then finally, $2 from Zephyr Hash. Instead of paying 40%, Gibbs wants to pay 100%. Shrugging person emoji. Okay, thank you. But yeah, like this idea of, and this is something I just believe across the board. When you play by the rules, people are more likely to engage with you, right? They're more likely to trust you. They're more likely to participate in exchanges with you, trades, deals, etc. When you start breaking those rules, especially your own rules, as unfortunately I think America is doing with its threats towards Panama, towards Greenland, and towards Canada, yeah, it makes people not want to work with you anymore because why? How can they trust you? And that is a big part of the game, right? Go ahead. What?
That's a supposition, I guess. Yeah. So we'll just have to see.
Yes,
how it plays out.
that is my hypothesis, if you will, right? Like I think that yeah.
The reason I think Trump is talking, that the Panama Canal is a ripoff is because when there was a precondition for the handover in 1999 that they wouldn't levy charge unnatural, what they call charges on the US, and he and that he looks at that as violating the strategic neutrality of the Panama Canal. That was a precondition for the handover.
I think it's so fucking funny that the campaign, the no war campaign, are the people who are in support of forcibly taking over these places, basically imperialism, but you don't support Russia invading Ukraine, or like us supporting Ukraine after being invaded by Russia. I just think this is so ironic.
Well, it's pretty simple. I got an easy explanation for that.
Just one time. Let's let Paula go first and Gibbs.
It's not like Ukraine was a unified country. There were Russian speakers in Ukraine that were being suppressed before that, and as I say, there was a red line about NATO not going up to Russia's borders, and the progressive Biden administration completely violated that. And so basically the territory that basically Putin has now are basically those Russian speaking areas.
Well,
Well,
I'm trying not to get into Ukraine debate. I disagree,
Okay.
but we
She's
will
right.
have that
Sure.
debate another day. This is about
I-
Panama, Greenland, and
Yeah, I was just pointing out
Yeah.
it's ironic that
I-
the
it's
same
not
people who
ironic.
support this
but
don't
Gibbs.
support.
Yeah, Gibbs. Go
Well,
ahead.
yeah, I can explain this real easy. I'm not a bad guy. I know some people want to paint me as a bad guy. I broke with him on. I thought we should support Ukraine. You know, I've always been whatever best for Papa. That's always been my motto right here. And so, what's interesting to me is when I go and look and I see, hey, we have trade with Ukraine, 1.4 million last year. Then we have trade with a country like I don't know, a billion. We have in a trade with our own hemisphere. We have a country like Haiti, which we have 1.5 billion in trade, which is actually more than Ukraine in 2022. So both those 23 numbers. I don't know what they currently are. I'm sure it's changed since we get a bunch of military tech. I go, oh, everything we're saying is bullshit. We're saying we're protecting Ukraine because we care about these Americans. No, we're protecting Ukraine because we know Russia's adversarial power. That's the only reason why we're there. If we actually cared about what happened to people, then we'd go and fucking invade Haiti and stop the people from getting eaten alive by gangs in the middle of their capital. I don't know. That might sound like allegedly. That's what I've seen reports. My point is, if we go in there, we stop barbecue from barbecuing people, then we can sit here and claim that we're this moralist, great guy, great American police. But instead, we don't invade Haiti to stop these terrorists and like cannibals. We go in.
Well, that is why
people,
most of the world trusts the U.S. over Russia.
Well,
To be
okay, I don't know if
clear,
that's trust.
we
It means
behave
we're
better than
liars.
Russia. Because
No,
I
it
want to
means
make
we're
this clear,
liars,
gang.
Wick. It's
And
not-
hold on, stop. Because I want to make this clear. Like the reason that a lot of Ukraine speaks Russian is because they were made to. They were forced to. They were Russified, right? The reason that a lot of these other countries in the USSR, Soviet bloc, speak Russian is because they had to, right? Their
No,
culture
but
was
the only
erased
reason the US
by
is-
force under
Hold on, the only-
imperialistic rule. But
That's
Ah!
a
The
little
only
iceberg,
reason
though.
why we're there, Wick, though, is because it's America's interest to not let Russia become a preeminent superpower again, right? That's why we're in Ukraine. And if we were actually caring about human rights and human lives, we would invade Haiti. So, like, I'm sick of this idea that we're not an imperialistic power and we're doing this neo-imperialism or this new Pax Americana. We need to just do what all the other countries have been doing the whole time, and we've been playing by a different set of rules because it clearly doesn't fucking matter. Because all these other countries are doing the same thing you're saying we're afraid of. China's over here threatening you, Canada. China's over here taking land, and countries all over the world do business with China. You know, countries all over the world do business with
Like
Russia.
the United States.
So this idea that we're going to just sit here and be the good guys, that's the only way for these countries to work with us, is if they trust us. You know what they trust us to be, Wick? They trust us to be a bunch of baby like bitches that won't use their military power to get what they want. What we need to do is let them know what the fuck is up and give them the hands every once
you
in a while.
don't think that
None of them will trade with us.
They would trade with us. Will they trade with China and Russia? Why do they keep trading with them? You don't have an answer for that because the answer is they're going to do it to make it even. They're going to do what's better and best for them, despite these countries being enemies and trying to gain power. Like if these other countries can trade with China and Russia, they'll trade with us if we start being imperialistic.
Okay.
I mean,
Well,
alliances in
that's
general
not-
are just good, but yeah, go ahead.
Like we
Yeah.
we also have trade with many of these other countries, right? We also have relations with many of these other countries. One of the things that people like Nonsmoker would rail against is the amount of influence we have and exert forcefully in a lot of these other countries. I'm not against using military force on occasion. I'm not against using soft power on occasion, right? I'm not against an expanding American influence on occasion, right? I think we can do that. I think it's fine. I think it's morally good in many cases. What I am against is doing things that's going to make us weaker abroad. And I think that what Trump is trying to do, specifically with his threats against with his threats against Panama, with his overtures with Denmark and Greenland, and with Canada of all people, right? First of all, I don't want Canadians, okay? I don't want them to be part of the United States. I don't want that.
Self-interest.
Yeah,
It's
I don't.
self-interest.
I don't want them here. Sorry, Corey. I love you as a person,
I take
right?
no
But
offense. I don't
want
want
you
to be part of the United
American.
States. I don't want American culture.
Okay.
Even though there's like 80% or 90% overlap, like there's aspects of Canadian culture that I want. And
Keep America great. Keep Canada out. That's what I say.
I don't want
okay?
your obesity levels.
They're
Keep
two
that to
different
yourself.
systems too. It's not even. I feel like Canada is a little bit more socialized than America is, like with healthcare and school and stuff. So I don't even think we would integrate that easily.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Some parts of Canadian culture are pretty reprehensible, like their history of war crimes and their fast track to suicide pods. I love it. I mean, you know what? They
Their
don't even need
history
the
of
death
war
penalty. They don't.
crimes, so
They
we
don't
probably
even.
don't want to go to war with them, right?
They don't even need to have lethal injection there because they just talk the people into killing themselves. It's really impressive.
I also
Right
just
on,
want to
right
point
on the
out,
nose, Gibbs.
I just real quick, I also just want to point out when Gibbs is talking about like other people trading with China and stuff, America is the strongest economy in the world right now. So we can lose that by hurting our alliances and allies.
Yeah, but
Like
we
we
could
have
also
places
lose
to
it
go
by doing
down.
nothing. We could also lose that by doing nothing, which is what we're currently doing. We keep bending
But we
over and
have it right
acquiescing.
now. We still have the strongest
Yeah, but
economy right
okay,
now.
all right. Here's the thing, though. China and just much like India are set to become the biggest economies soon. They have billions of people, right? Like
They've
they're
been
just
saying that for fucking 20 years.
it's coming. Yeah, cool. I get that. This is why I brought up when I brought up like Nepal. They're like, oh, recent. Like I look at like it as this large stretch of time. You can't look at it and go, oh, 50 years. That's too far back. Like honestly, we should be looking at things like 100-year segments because we don't really see the fallout, for whatever. So sure, it might not happen in 20 years. It might not even happen in another 20 years. But by the time I have kids or grandkids, you know what? China and India might be the preeminent power economically,
Or
because we didn't do anything now. Like
or
I
they
want a
might
future
become
for
it
America.
because we do the stuff that Trump is talking
Well,
about
we know
and
that
we
they're going
ruin
to
all of
implement it if
our
we do
trade
nothing.
alliances and all of our allies and
But
everything like that, and
so
then we
you
go
realize why
down
Trump got elected, right? The reason why Trump got elected is because people
because
want
people were
change.
lied to.
No, because people want change. They're sick
People
of the
were
status
afraid
quo, and
to use this fear
Thought
mongering.
it was
if the status
inflation.
quo continues, then we're going to not be the preeminent economic power. China or India is. So guess what? He's taking a stance against that, and we're going to get some sort of change. Whether it works or not is to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things going on here. I would say that China becoming the preeminent world economic power probably has, or the fact that they're growing so rapidly and they may outpace us has more to do with the fact that they actually make things, right? And we don't. And same is true with India,
Agree with
by the
that.
way.
Yeah.
But which is a major problem, and it doesn't seem to be one that anybody here has like a realistic, not you guys, but I mean anybody in our country has like a realistic solution for. But um, putting that aside for a second, I kind of want to go back to the Russia comparison. Look, I think everybody assumes I'm Mr. Putin or something like that. I love Russia. It's really not like that. I just accept the reality of that whole thing. But I will say that Putin's decision clearly came as what it was indicative of like a intense insecurity on his part in terms of the preeminence of Russia. And I think us taking aggressive military action to secure the Panama Canal would be an equal demonstration of our own insecurity as an economic power, military power. We would be responding out of desperation and fear of the rise of China and doing something which we've pretty much tried to speak out against for the last, 5 years in terms of what our opponents are doing. It's totally hypocritical, and it would totally force, the rest of the countries of the world, I think, to look at us differently. I think that's kind of undeniable. But I also think, when I talked about the reasons for doing this, i.e., Trump is trying to have a counterbalance for his really stupid fucking, trade war idea, I would argue, well, we don't really need to do this. When America was at its economic peak, we didn't have to control the Panama Canal to reach that. Right? The only reason we're even having this discussion is because Trump wants to have a trade war with China to correct the trade imbalance. And I think we might be better suited addressing the trade imbalance through other means, like, I don't know, building up manufacturing here, which is something that MAGA was supposed to be about. They've totally abandoned that. Instead, they want to do this ultra competitive trade war shit and then, balance off the costs with stealing territory from sovereign countries. Sounds really stupid.
Dang. Let's talk Greenland for a minute. We've talked a lot about Panama. So Greenland does have, or it has the potential to have, if you will, a lot of rare earth minerals that are going to be important in tech advances and manufacturing coming up. If not Trump's plan, how should America go about securing a portion of those minerals? What are some alternatives to gaining access to some of these minerals? What do we guys think? Let's hear it.
Well, if they're allies, why not just like negotiate?
Buy them?
Yeah, or like, isn't that what you do with allies instead of like using force?
Why? Yes. What? Why not? Why can't we just buy it? Why would that be wrong to do? To those who support annexing Greenland or whatever, right?
I mean,
Why not just pay for the minerals? Why not? We got a lot of money.
That's how we expect other people to buy our stuff, right?
well,
We sell it.
You
I'll
buy
tell you-
Canadian energy, a lot of it.
we get. I mean, okay. Let's just look at some basics here. Every time throughout history, there have been times when a certain resource was needed to make like one the dominant power, right? Like, and whoever controlled that resource, they became the dominant power. Greenland's one of these places where they have a lot of these rare earth minerals we're gonna need for processing, computers, all sorts of stuff. Like, this is like an area. This is something that need to be controlled. Now, you mentioned, why don't we let our allies just become our ally, or Denmark is our ally? Why don't we just negotiate? The problem is people don't always stay allies. And sometimes your allies are actually not really your ally. Like Turkey, for example, has pretended to be our ally for a while and then works every other opportunity against us, right? So just because someone's your ally now doesn't mean they're going to stay your ally in perpetuity. It's much easier whenever there's like an area that has more cows than people to go in there, annex it, and guarantee that we have access to these supplies in perpetuity. Then we don't have to worry about if our ally ever turns on us. We don't have to worry about getting unfair trade deals. We can just say it's ours, and we can make sure it's best for every American, best for American production. This will help production here in America. I know I actually agree, Nonsmoker. We need to build more production here in America. Manufacturing not being here is a major problem. This will help that, and we can build manufacturing there. We can populate it more. It's fantastic.
They're
It's
an
fantastic idea, actually.
independent nation.
No, they're not. They're part of Denmark, but fuck
But
them if
yeah,
they are.
okay, they're part of
That's
Denmark,
what you
but
mean is independent, not the United
yes,
States.
they're
Yeah, but fuck 'em.
independent. They're not for sale. Like, you actually believe just going in and taking over any part of the world that we want?
Everybody else is doing it. Why not us? I mean, like,
That's
you like.
what China's maneuvering
What if Russia
too
decides
in
tomorrow they're
Greenland.
going to conquer? Like, okay, they're done with Ukraine. They want to guarantee their minerals, and they go and take over Greenland. Are we going to just sit there and go, oh no, so
No,
sad? That's exactly
We'll
what we're
take
going to
your
do.
NATO obligations if China.
What if
Yeah,
all
maybe.
what if
Russia
all the countries gather together and they're like, let's just take America? Like, this
They
is
could
just something
try.
we're gonna be cool with? And
I mean, they
make
could
like
try.
a regular
okay,
thing?
okay. I want to give it to Paula. Go ahead.
China is maneuvering right now to take Greenland. And the US is wary of any potential increase in Chinese military presences near its borders, which is why this is happening. I think the mineral thing is secondary to that.
Do you think that we're worried about China? Explain this to me. Why? What do you think China's doing in Greenland that's going to threaten our borders?
Okay, so I was looking at this document today, and it's called "The U.S. is closely watching Chinese motives in the Arctic and is scaling up its military activities." Okay, so let's get the notes that I have for that.
Because I understand
yeah,
that they're
this-
building
this- it's this
infrastructure
step
like
tra-
to buy minerals.
because at the minute China is using its economic investments to gain long-term political leverage in the Arctic region, which could eventually translate into military influence. I've already said that they're building this thing, that the airport that they're building now for a Chinese company, and I mentioned debt trap diplomacy. It traps Greenland into debt and basically then negotiates. Well, we'll put our military bases. You don't pay us back. We'll put our military bases there.
Did I miss
And
a
then-
raid? Hold on. It's a wild day that my Twitch chat has more people than my YouTube. Did someone raid me and I miss it? I'm sorry. I have like almost 100 of you in there. Okay,
So
whatever.
the Chinese
Carry on.
Chinese company called the China Communications Construction Company. Okay, is in
okay.
Greenland, building dual civilian and military complexes, or certainly complexes that could be put to dual civilian and military reasons, and this is why
I understand.
there's so much
Yeah.
interest in America by America in Greenland. If China captured those resources, then That's the secondary kind of
Yeah,
level of
okay.
this.
But
Go
China
ahead.
accounts for a little less than half of the world's like exports in rare earth elements. They don't need Greenland. They don't need them.
Exactly.
It, there's
And they're
really
in
no
Panama.
major benefit. I'm not saying that China would not want access to those minerals either, but I'm saying like it's not a race for Greenland, right? There's a reason that this is a recent discussion, and it was a discussion in the first Trump presidency, if everyone remembers, and it's a discussion now. It's because Trump's main foreign policy stance is to have a trade war, and I know I sound like a broken record here, but is through a trade war with China to negotiate a quote better deal for America. And that actually failed in the first term as well. But the thinking here is very simple. If there's a trade war with China, it becomes far more expensive to import rare earth elements with which America needs to produce EV batteries, right? If we can take or annex Greenland or purchase it or whatever, we can drill rare earth elements from Greenland, thus reducing the impact that the trade war will have on the cost of electric EV batteries and vehicles. That's the thinking on it. That's really the only reason we're having this discussion. And if we weren't talking about having a trade war with China, it wouldn't be on the fucking table.
That's not true. That's absolutely unequivocally not true. We've been trying to buy Greenland or take it over in one way or another since 1867 with President Johnson.
But it hasn't been consistent talks.
It has
It's
been
been on the
consistent
table
talks
at
every
different times.
20 years it comes up. Like we come in here, we talk about it, and listen. If it's not just the minerals, it's strategic reserves controlling the Arctic Circle, right? There's tons of fucking oil in the Arctic. There's the rare earth and minerals in Greenland. Not only that, we have bases there. Like if Greenland happened to go like one way or the other, they could kick us out of these bases. It's considered essential to NORAD strategic command. There's a reason why since 1947 we've had 1941 we've had a consistent military presence there. Yeah, I don't know if China's plans on taking it tomorrow. And like y'all are all arguing this, like, oh, we're the power today. But it's like if we don't ever plan for tomorrow, then eventually, they might just try to take that over and deny us those minerals, even if they don't need them, just to fuck us. There's so many scenarios that can play out.
Why would they want
to?
to fuck us?
Because China hates us. They're an adversarial power. You do understand?
Why would Greenland? But if we have we have like truly something, and we have like space bases there, and we we protect Denmark, like they're part of NATO. Like if we can negotiate with them, why would they like start picking China over?
Do you have are you in agreement on every issue in your own friend group in real life?
No.
Okay, cool. So same thing here. They might be our friends, they might be our allies, but they can disagree with us on a whole bunch of stuff. Something we may even find out that we need is necessary for our national security or sovereignty going forward. Might not be today, might not be 20 years from now. Who knows? But
This is
it's
just
pretty
paranoid
clear.
speculation.
No, it's
though.
not. It's not paranoid speculation. You can look at throughout history where empires in America is an empire don't act and they fall. I know that some of y'all are pro multipolarity. I am not. I want to continue American excellence, and I don't want us to fail in 30 years because we failed to act now.
Gibbs, hold on, Gibbs.
Really
I want to respond to this, Gibbs. By threatening Denmark, we make it less likely for them to be our ally in the future, and more likely for them to be friends with.
What have they really done with it for us lately? What have they done for us lately?
Gibbs, do you
tell
really
me,
think
what have they done for us lately? Like, what has Denmark? Has Denmark came in and fought a war for us lately?
Do you really think our national security is at risk if we don't control Greenland?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. And like, as for the Denmark thing,
everybody's
just
wait. Can you hold on? Paint that picture for me. What do you think is going to happen?
Russia controls the Arctic Circle. China maybe controls portion of the Arctic Circle. If we don't get control of Greenland, we lose access to resources. They control trade routes. I mean, they're building. China's got more submarines than we do now. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff we can look at. I absolutely think it's essential that we move forward, taking over some of these areas. I've said it for a long time, long before Trump got
for me. Like, what is going to happen exactly? Russia and China through the Arctic Circle are going to invade Canada and then America?
No, they're going to cut off access to resources we need. They're going to bleed us out. I mean, y'all are acting like we can't see examples of this throughout history. Like, it's never like one cut.
We get a lot of our natural. We get a lot of the resources we would get from Greenland from China.
Right, I understand that, and we can.
It benefits the Chinese to sell it to us.
Yeah, if in the interim, and Trump's about to start a trade war because they're all the money that we're sending them is being used against us. I don't understand why this is a hard concept for y'all to follow along. Like,
curious how long you've been worried about this exact issue, because I speculate it's been about like what 5 days ago when Trump first made this
Well,
speech.
if you watch any of my shit, or you've even been on panels with me, where I've sat here and said we need to bring back Manifest Destiny 2.0, long before I've ever even heard Trump talk about this. So, you know,
I never
maybe
heard
he's
you
just coming
talking
to the
about
light.
taking over countries, like especially Greenland.
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't have gave Iraq back either. We should have stayed in Afghanistan, converted them too. I mean, I think it's been the biggest mistake foreign policy wise to give any of these countries back.
So Vietnam should have ended.
You know,
That's
Okay.
that one. You're a little
It's
hippie
like
about.
what
you know,
Nonsmoker
I don't know, we were winning there.
Go ahead,
said.
Paula,
The
please.
international system is anarchic, which means there's no overarching authority above individual states, and these are always shifting. You know, the power within these states are always shifting, and states are maneuvering within this to maintain their own autonomy. Everybody is doing that.
Yes, but at least for the last 30 to 50 years, if not longer. I would say that they did it within the context of America being the 800-pound gorilla in the room, right? America was the one that was able to exert its influence first, most, and best in a large portion of the world. Not
I
all
wouldn't
of it,
say best.
obviously, right?
Well,
I would.
okay, I
Fair
kind
enough.
of agree sort of with Wick, whether or not that's morally right or not, whatever. But okay, let me ask you this, Wick. Do you
Please.
think that Russia and China are in any kind of rush to have a direct military confrontation with the U.S.?
No.
Right. So this whole idea of like the plot of fucking Red Alert 2 happening if we don't buy Greenland is retarded, right?
The one exception is Taiwan. I think that China is looking to retake Taiwan.
Forget
and
Taiwan,
they would,
though. Yeah,
they might, like, that
maybe.
would bring it
But keep it
into
on
conflict
Greenland.
with America.
Keep it on Greenland. If we
Yeah.
don't buy Greenland, are we going to see the Soviet blimps from Red Alert flying over New York City?
Almost certainly not.
I mean, not tomorrow, but maybe 30 years from now. I mean, like,
That's a
like,
huge fucking maybe, dude.
Hold on. Y'all
Yeah.
act like, okay, so we do stuff for maybes all the time. You know, like, that's how we elect leaders. I mean, that's what democracy is. Maybe this guy will change shit. Like, all the time. I want to ask Wick a question, because Wick was asked this. Wick, so you sat here, and you were like, oh, they're our ally, and I asked you what they do. Would you agree with this statement? And I know it's true. Everybody likes the guy at the club that buys bottle service. Right?
Sure.
I don't drink.
Okay, well, sure, right.
Yeah, when
so,
you get
same
free
thing.
stuff, I love my super chatters such as Zephyr Hash, which just give me $5 to say we might be seeing Wick changing his opinions from unipolar to multipolar in real time because how bad unipolar sides arguments are. Look, Gibbs is a great guy, but he is just wrong here. But
not.
carry on.
No, I want to
You
ask.
are.
So, okay, same thing with this, right? We've been footing the bill for NATO, all these other little police actions, all this stuff. We've been footing the bill with our manpower. We've been footing the bill with our military, like our munitions. We've been footing the bill for with financially, all these different ways. You know, of course, all these people love us. We're their friends.
Because
Hey,
it is in our
until-
best
hold on,
interest to do
hold
so.
on. Until we want something that doesn't align with their interest. And then suddenly, oh, it's so terrible. That guy's a piece of shit. And then they go and they make these trade deals, do all this stuff.
Can
So
you give
maybe,
an example, a concrete example of how
Yeah,
you're putting the bill for
sure.
everything and you don't get anything in return?
yeah, I mean, like, sure. Like, let's look at Afghanistan. They weren't there for us. They sent, like,
Yes, they
piecemeal
were.
numbers.
Denmark
No, they weren't.
specifically
They
was.
sent
Denmark
piecemeal numbers.
specifically
Okay,
was in
how many
Afghanistan with us.
Yeah, they were like a small portion, a piecemeal amount.
What
like
are you
1,000.
talking about?
How many thousands?
Afghanistan
Hold
never
on, Wick.
had the
Is it over 10,000 troops they sent? Did they send over 10,000 troops? If it's no, then they can shut the fuck up.
Why
and
is
they
that the
did.
threshold?
They didn't do
Why is
nothing.
10,000 threshold?
I don't know, because we sent thousands and thousands overseas. I just picked an arbitrary number, because everybody wants to give these countries credit for sending 300 peacemakers, 1,600 peacemakers. When we sent, thousands upon thousands everywhere. We died with the manpower. We spent the money, all money spent. They weren't even spending their own GDP until recently, all for NATO. And all these countries have been taking advantage of us, and then saying they're our
Dude,
best friend.
I want
They
to say
have their
it's
own
ridiculous.
interests. They have
So
their own
exactly,
interests.
Also,
and so it's in
no,
our
no, no,
interest to tell them to go fuck themselves if they don't want to agree with ours.
Okay,
And then
I
everybody
got a
disagrees
specific
with that guy.
number. Do you know how many troops Denmark sent?
Sure.
9,500. So not
Wow,
quite
under 10K.
10,000.
It's amazing that I picked that number specifically.
Also, it's not just Denmark. Also, like their geographical location is actually beneficial for us to be alliances with like other countries like Europe. And if we do this shit to Denmark, you're like for certain other European countries, European countries, even like Germany, France, the UK, are probably going to at least sanction us or like have some kind of I'm just saying it's good
I
to
don't
have
think
these
so.
people.
They're not gonna shit. They live off our teat.
The most important
They don't have
territory
to.
Go
in
ahead,
Europe
Paula,
is Germany.
please.
The most important territory in Europe is Germany, and I think Trump's policy is going to be to help Germany re-establish its military function there, in order that it can. Sorry.
You say it's the most important territory in Europe. Can you expound upon that in your view?
But
Why would
this is
you
why
say that?
at the end of Second World War, this is why there were so many people. There were, the Russians were there, the British were there, the Americans were there. They spent so much time there rebuilding it because it is the center of Europe. They didn't bother with the other states. They let the other states go to Russia because they're not as strategic as Germany is.
Well, not after World War II. It was a race to Berlin between the Soviet Union and the
Yeah.
U.S., and we pretty much divided the line where that race ended. For the most part, it wasn't that we abandoned these other countries. It's that the Soviet Union was
Germany's
a
the
power.
biggest economy.
It was a multipolar world at that time, right? And Soviet Union was like, oh, it was bipolar world specifically, but Soviet Union was like, oh no, these are ours because this is where we are, and we didn't want to fight them at the time, and so that's where it ended up. I don't think we did it because Germany was the most significant portion of Europe. It might have been at the time, but at least today, it might be. I just don't know that it is. I don't know if currently. I would say that Ukraine currently is the most important.
But this is what Trump is going to be doing. He's going to be taking the U.S. troops out of there, but not before Germany kind of regains some of its power there, some of its military kind of presence there, so it can actually do its job.
So do you think Germany would have an issue with us like invading Greenland and just taking it over forcibly?
I don't know. I can't read minds.
I promise you that they would probably have an issue with America
Yes.
coming in and taking over Denmark. They would. I think most of Europe would. It would signal first of all, Denmark is a NATO member, so that would
Greenland is Denmark.
break
Well, here's
NATO.
No, there's an easy way around that, Wick. I have an easy solution to not even to break NATO. You ready for this? Because Denmark has recognized that Greenland already has a strong independence movement to break away from Denmark. We just let Greenland, we help them, maybe push them along with some CIA assets, because we've never done that before. Push them along to help become their own country. And then as soon as they're their own country, then we invade because Greenland, and we recognize that Greenland is no longer part of NATO because Denmark's not with them. And then no problem, tit for tat, Denmark could say, oh, we told y'all that was coming when y'all wanted independence, but you didn't listen to us. And then Denmark is, justified. They lost an area where there's really more cows than people, and some resources that we could use.
We would be having a different conversation if Greenland wanted to become the 51st state or something. If there was a sizable portion of Greenland who was like, you know what, we kind of do want to join America, then we could have a conversation with that. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with something like that, but that is not the conversation we're having. We're having a conversation where Trump has at least alluded to, right, that he wants to either buy or annex Greenland against the will
because China is
of
there.
Denmark.
He's making these things because China is there already. He's not doing if China wasn't there.
China is there in the sense that they have infrastructure there to mine earth minerals and things like that.
Yes.
Yes.
Mining projects.
That does not, in my opinion, justify us annexing Greenland. I think that what that does justify is us also building infrastructure there.
Well, to argue with that, Wick, you notice like the two, like other than the Canada, which I don't know how serious he is or not with Canada, it seems like it's more of a threat to get them to play ball economically. I'm not, that's the thing about Trump is nobody's really sure, and that's part of why he's a good negotiator. People bash that because they're like, it sounds crazy, but it's sometimes, the method is in the madness. And when I look at this, I think he's actually been pretty smart strategically. One, he's bitched about the NATO not people carrying their weight. When he did this the first time, after he did this, I think we can all agree that it became better because all of NATO started increasing their funding to meet or exceed what they were required to. So, like, when he did this the first time, threatened to pull out, they got whatever. This is just a good way to negotiate and threaten NATO, one, with Greenland. Secondly, if it came down to, like, hey, we really absolutely need this for strategy, there's nobody there. There's nobody there. It'd be an easy walk in the park. Same thing with Panama. We've already proved we can take over Panama in 5 days. We could do it again, and China wouldn't be able to get people off the ground, and they wouldn't send people over there to come fight us in Panama. And nobody's coming to Panama's aid. And Panama is not part of NATO. So it's pretty easy. You get 2 easy wins, expand the U.S., and gain control of our economic future. And it's very strategic by him, and I got to give him credit. My first country I would have tried to take over would have been Haiti. I would have done it under the guise of, saving the
No,
people there from barbecue. But this is actually probably a better move.
Man, it's so refreshing in a way to hear like imperialism advocated for so directly. I'm
Yeah.
like not used to it, American imperialism specifically, but yeah, I mean, I do want to contend a little bit with Paula's point, and then I'll respond to what Wick said. But if it's about just trying to take places that China has an interest in extracting resources from, there's plenty of other places in the world that China extracts resources from that we might have an interest in theoretically. I think Greenland specifically is connected to the threat of the impact of the cost of the impact that a trade war will have on the cost of rare earth elements specifically. I think that that's what this discussion is about now. That's what it was about in the first Trump term. And then Gibbs, I would say it back to you. Why do you want to start from a position of weakness? Why do you think we should be treating the world like we're constantly vulnerable to attack and threat? We're the biggest gorilla in the room, right? We're the most powerful country in the fucking planet. We have nukes. We have, an awesome, really expensive military. I mean, we're an economic superpower in addition to military superpower. I don't understand why we have to negotiate from a position of like fear, where we're worried about our adversaries taking us over constantly, unless you're suggesting that that's the nature of unipolarity, that we always have to be afraid of rising powers, in which case I would actually agree with you. And that's why I think unipolarity is a bad idea.
I would like to give this example. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah,
Can I just answer what he was going to say?
Please.
Okay, China's a potential regional hegemon, okay, and it's disrupting the balance of power already in Asia and challenging U.S. dominance. But what you said about, America is the biggest gorilla in the room, has really expensive, has nuke. I mean, nuclear war is out there, okay, but first, because the picture of war is going to change massively with drones. Cheap drones are going to change the picture of war completely. And China is the leader in that technology. So we don't know what it's going to look like even in 10 years' time. And I think it's just making sure that just protecting borders. It's just really kind of creating those red lines and protecting borders, and because we really don't know what the world's going to look like in war, even in 10 years' time with cheap drone warfare.
I understand, but let me to respond to that for a moment. I understand that, and I think that there is some we absolutely need to invest in drone technology. I think it will be a part of combined arms and that kind of the modern, more economic war that goes on. But I don't think people quite understand just how effective America's military is.
Yes.
We are so strong. We hold ourselves back, right? We hold ourselves back because if we were ever able, or if we were ever to unleash ourselves, it would be a horror beyond imagining on whatever our target was. And this is not counting nukes. I'm leaving that out of the picture for now. To give you an example, we were able to kill an enemy general in the middle of traffic. A traffic jam. We sent a missile right on the other side of the world that hit him and killed him, right? No one else around. I think the other guy in his car maybe got killed too, but it was like him and maybe one other guy was just taken out like that. That is the power and might of the American military. Yes, drones will change it in these things, but we are several tech levels higher than even, I would argue, Russia and China. China, in a lot of ways, they're kind of a paper tiger. They are a regional power. They aren't someone we could just wave away, right? But I do think that we have a misunderstanding of where America lies in terms of military dominance. We are still quite a few steps above the next competitor.
And that's only the
strongest,
technology
if I may, the strongest
we know about.
the strongest air force in the world is the U.S. Air Force. The second strongest air force in the world is the U.S. Navy. Okay, we got them both, right? So, like, I just, yeah, that's my point. Go ahead.
Can I respond? Can I add to that quick?
Go ahead.
Wick. Look, so yeah, totally, right? We are the world's preeminent military power, and it's really not even that close. I mean, China has more soldiers, Russia, I think, technically has more nukes, right? But we're the preeminent military power. We're unmatched in military power, and it's because we invest so much money in defense spending. But isn't the whole point of investing that amount of money in defense spending being primarily to use it as a deterrent? Right? In other
Absolutely.
words, don't fuck with us. Right. So doesn't it kind of betray that whole line of thinking to then use that powerful military to invade a sovereign country, as a national security issue? To say we're afraid of being invaded by Russia or China through fucking Greenland. It's it's an indication that we have no faith in this ultra powerful military we've spent all this money building up.
No, I think it's a better analogy is we have no faith in the current world system that's set up. Like, we don't have faith in our enemies. You know what? I agree. I actually will agree with you, Nonsmoker. I think it does show us a healthy amount of fear and skepticism from other people. And it's not necessarily a position of fear. I'll give you an example, and we use it as here's a native animal to Texas. I think it's a native animal to a large part of the United States. It's the mountain lion, a cougar, a puma. You know what I'm saying? And they big cats, they roam, they're hyper carnivore, they have no natural predators. However, whenever another big cat comes into their land, they will hunt it down, they'll fight it out. Or, but still they'll remain skittish and afraid of interacting with other big predators, like, say, a grizzly or something else, right? Because why? You don't want to jump on a grizzly's back, right? So sometimes you have to act preemptively. This is a case where we need to act preemptively. Like, the idea that we'll always be the world's superpower military is laughable. There's always some new tech advance coming that can offset whatever we got. I saw a guy just yesterday, he rediscovered pauldrons, basically, and they were now selling pauldrons that are bulletproof. What's next? Drones are going to replace aircraft. Who knows? There's all sorts of, tech coming, and China has the manufacturing to produce all of it, while we've let it all go to waste. We need to go ahead and grab our future now, otherwise we're fucked.
I don't disagree that we need to continue to keep our military advantage, our technology advantage, but I don't think that threatening or annexing Greenland, China, or Panama is the way to do that. We are kind of coming up, Canada. I don't want for other reasons, but fair enough. I guess. Well, yeah,
Haiti,
we're
Wick?
just look. I
Would
think
you be in
we've
favor
kind
of
of
saving the people in Haiti, Wick, and giving them American
I'm fine with
lives?
military interventionalism to.
Do you think that if we made them a
others,
special
yeah.
economic zone, like, say, I don't know, Guam or Puerto Rico, gave them the same rights as Puerto Rico, do you think the average person in Haiti's life would improve?
Probably.
Okay, do you think that since they're such a third world country, the manufacturing and potential in that area is anywhere up to go from zero?
Sure.
Yeah, it's so what I'm saying is, then you also should be a fan of imperialism, because Greenland, basically untapped resources. Panama.
Greenland isn't Haiti.
Same
Greenland
thing.
isn't
Haiti,
having these
same-
huge issues, right? Greenland's, as far as I know, just kind of doing its thing. It doesn't want us, right? I mean, it doesn't want us to take it over. But it is part of NATO. It is someone we trade with. It is someone we can compete with China in terms of infrastructure and in terms of trade and in terms of rare earth minerals. We can
you're not
absolutely
concerned
compete with
about
them on an
allies changing?
economic level.
Look at the UK. In 30 years, do you think the UK will even be our ally, or are they going to be like a new Islamic
Man,
state?
I don't know.
Why wouldn't they be? Why?
Well,
What is this fear coming from?
Because interests change as demographics change, as populations die off and new populations rise, as regional shifts change, as different resources become needed. Allies aren't always going to be your allies.
There's no
I
reason
don't
to
know
believe
why
that's
you
happening,
think that.
though.
If you want to maintain allies, maybe you should not have this type of
Because
rhetoric.
we're the only ones doing it. We've been the only ones upholding all all this for so long. Everybody wants to be your friend when you foot the bill. The
We're
minute
not.
we said, hold on, the minute we said,
Oh,
hey, let's collect
There's
and
a
finish
few
the truck,
different points
everybody
here.
starts getting pissy.
Gibbs,
Like,
if you, wait, so you're saying the United States foots the bill for everything? So
yeah,
how
we're
is
the
it
guy.
that
We're the guy buying bottle service.
how are they the greatest economic power then? How does that?
Because
Square
we have
circle for me.
the most superior system of
You're
capitalism.
saying
that's
you're being taken advantage of all this time, and
We
yet you're
are.
the greatest economic power.
because
Square
we
that circle
it's
for
because
me.
we've had
The whole world is
dominance.
capitalist.
Yeah, basically we've had dominance for so long that we've been able to like get away with not like, oh, they've had bad trade deals and not hurt us. Now maybe there's a little less to go around. It's time to pay the piper. We've been footing the bill. We've been buying the bottle at the club every time. Time for you to nut up and pay the piper, or get the fuck out of our way so we can continue this American excellence that we've been doing.
Or
Wait,
maybe
so
we're
with
the greatest economy in the world because of the way we do things.
so with the demographic shift, are you implying that the numbers of refugees, Muslims going into the UK will make it such that the UK will not be an ally of ours in
I mean,
30
who
years
knows?
because
I
of
mean,
that?
Turkey's not really our ally, and they're part of NATO. I mean, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, it could be ISIS,
Well, I think
ISIS of UK. I don't know.
hold on.
It's
Dude,
unbased. We
there
have
are a
nothing
lot
based
of
on it.
non-white countries that are allies of the U.S. or they're
Who
on
cares if they're
favorable
white or not?
terms
It could
with
be
the
any
US.
demographic. Like, it doesn't matter if they're white. But
Okay.
if like
But
a million white
just
people move
said the
to South
demographic
Africa,
shift would
yeah,
impact
because
that
that's one that we
relationship.
know is shifting. Like, if like a million people move from Norway to like South Africa tomorrow, that'd be a demographic shift. There's demographic shifts that change local politics all the time. Are you disagreeing with that?
No,
Okay, the
well,
English
local
Prime Minister.
politics are
Hold
different
on.
than
We do have a
international
British person
relations,
here. They
first
can
of all.
speak to
But
this. Go ahead, Paula.
How does it feel like you live in the ISIS of the UK?
Well, our communist prime minister is threatening to break contact with America already.
I rest my case.
Why?
I rest
He'll
my
try and
case.
do that. He can try and do that, but I mean, he's not going to be there for much longer.
Yeah,
I said-
I do not fear Britain and American relations taking a collapse. I don't think.
I'm
that
just
there's
hoping
any-
Trump
But
will
you never
give
know
us,
if they could, though. They could, though, right, Wing?
But
A
why
lot
would
of
you?
things.
Why
You
would
know what could happen? You could make an actually coherent point. It could happen.
I
It
made a
hasn't
coherent
yet.
point. I'm sorry.
Right?
y'all
It
been able to-
hasn't yet, but it could.
Everything
It's
I've
possible.
said has happened in history. Like y'all, you sit here and want to say, "Oh, don't make a coherent point." I could point to thousands of historical examples that's happening throughout since the dawn of time, and then you want to go, "I have the audacity to act like I'm not making a coherent
No,
point."
'cause
I'm
why
sorry,
would
it's
you
too big brain
ruin-
for you. I'm sorry.
Why would you ruin good relations with countries we have based off of an unsubstantiated fear of something that could go wrong in the future?
Okay, gang. Look, we are running out of time. This has been a discussion. I do want to hit right, like, just before we go, right. I do want to say that there is a benefit. I am not against American hegemony. I like American hegemony. Pax Americana, I think, is a good thing. However, the question becomes, how do we maintain it? Can we maintain it? Because that is a real question in the with China and Russia gathering influence around the world, right, and trying to exert that influence. And I think that it is in question whether or not in the next 10 years it will be the American hegemony that we know and love. I hope that it is. If it is not, this is my closing statement. I'll let you guys make yours. If it is not, the world is going to be a worse place. We do not want a multipolar world order because that will, the large increase in the anarchistic behavior between countries would exponentially rise, and we would see wars and rumors of wars, and it would be a terrible, terrible time. But hopefully we can avoid all that. Gang, if you've liked this content, if you've enjoyed this content, if you've loved this discussion, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you're following me on Twitch or Kick, hit that follow button. And I have links to all of these people's socials in my YouTube description. Please go to that, hit those links, give them a follow. They have taken time out of their day to come and argue on my channel for your entertainment. Reward them for doing so. Tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, we will be live again to talk about being a modern man. What does that mean? What are some struggles that men face in this world? Are men being failed by the systems? And we're going to talk about that. We're going to have some of the manliest men I know on to discuss it. It
Can I come
should
on?
be fun. Do you want to come on the all men panel?
Well, hey,
Men's spaces.
Yeah, we got it.
No.
We got. I'm gonna have to draw lines, okay? Lines in the sand, right? But I appreciate the
line?
interest. You can watch and you can react to it, and that'd be fun, right?
Okay.
Maybe call in
It might
after.
be in
We
an
might have call in
imaginary border.
afters, okay? But I want to give each of these lovely individuals a closing statement. We're gonna start with Paula, and we're gonna end with Corey. Paula, closing statement.
Yeah, I don't think Trump is going to be annexing Greenland or Panama or what's the other one? Canada anytime soon.
Yeah, what's that other one?
I think it's just rhetoric, and it's a extreme starting point for very important negotiations.
Okay, gang. She's great. Give her a follow. Thanks for being here, and thank you for your contributions. I hope you had fun. Next up is $10 from another new account to say, I'm disappointed we didn't get to cover the good things done by the U.S. So I'll quote from Prince Khalid: "If the world is only going to have one superpower, thank God it is the United States of America." Thank you for the $10. And on that note, Nonsmoker, go ahead.
Yeah, twitch.tv/non_smoker. So, I mean, I don't think we really actually got into the whole ethics of is unipolarity good or bad and all of that, which is unfortunate because my position has always been that it's a bad thing. And I think we could still have a future discussion about that if the opportunity presents itself. I actually don't think Trump will annex any of these territories either. But I actually think precisely the reason we're having this conversation is because America's unipolar moment, and it was just that, a moment, is over. You know, there are major powers in the world that present real challenges to us. I don't think that they present an immediate military threat or anything like that, but they are our economic competitors. And ultimately, I think that what we're seeing is the breakdown of the new imperialism system. So there was old imperialism, and now we have this neo or new imperialism based on capitalism. And I think we're seeing that breakdown as capitalism breaks down under the weight of its own contradictions. So it'll be an interesting world we all live in a post-capitalist one. I'm here for it, and happy to debate anybody about any of these topics.
We'll have to have that debate. Maybe I'll have you one-on-one and debate you on the ethics of unipolarity versus multipolarity. Should be a fun discussion. Thank you for being here. Ghosty, please.
So yeah, first of all, I think it's a good thing that people on this panel are admitting that Trump is a liar and a bullshitter and doesn't actually do anything he says.
I like Trump.
But
Closing
and in this
statements,
case, I
just
really hope he is lying, because I don't think it's a good idea to just forcibly overtake these countries that don't want to be. The right tries to be the side of morality and Christianity, and I think even just aside from our own interest, just morally, I think this is something wrong to do. But even in the case of our own interest, I do think it is in our interest to not invade these countries. And last thing, the reason, I just want to say this again, I said it earlier, the reason that Greenland has rare minerals and all these new trade routes opening is because of global warming. And again, Trump has always been denying global warming, so just more proof he's a liar. I am a Ghosty, it's spelled with a 6. The link is below. Thank you.
Check her out, gang. Thank you for being here. Gibbs, give us what you got.
Yeah, so leftists here are so mad about everything Trump does. I could just say this, TDS, that's all I really got to say. I, for one, though, am glad that Trump has come around to a position I've held most of my life. Leftists don't seem to know history, but are more than willing to repeat it. Just because something is icky doesn't mean it doesn't need to be done. When your garbage disposal breaks, you get someone to fix it, despite the fact that it will get your kitchen dirty and it smells bad. And that's the situation we have here. I'm Admiral Gibbs. If you liked or hated what I had to say, follow me. I'm Admiral Gibbs on everything. I'll be continuing this discussion here with iCal Rich starting in a few minutes after this show ends. 2 last quick promos. Thursday night, 7:30, I'll be hosting a panel over squatters' rights and property owners' rights. And Friday, we have Big Time Fights Friday. It's going to be the first of our semifinal matchups for the Debate Championship Series Grand Prix. It's going to be Fabian Liberty versus Average Debate and Joy. Should be a good one. Thanks so much, Rick, for having me. Always a good time.
Thank you for coming, and I guess we'll right into you so you guys can continue the discussion. Corey Campbell, what do you got?
Yeah, well, first, thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure. Never take it for granted. And yeah, I largely agree with the overall sentiment that Nonsmoker just went through in terms of, like, I largely view what Trump said, largely rhetoric, but also I recognize, at least in my opinion, this is just not how you treat your allies. As in, this is just like poor rhetoric, and I think as you brought up correctly, Wick, this potentially just, somewhere down the line maybe pushes countries or your allies to not trust you anymore and to actually go to your enemies. And the age-old saying of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And that's one of the ways to do it, is that type of rhetoric. And I just want people to know where Gibbs is coming from. Where if he encountered a person looking to buy a gun to kill a child, he would sell them that gun. He has made that explicitly clear. And so that is the mentality that he operates from, okay? And so it's no surprise that he wants Manifest Destiny 2.0, because all that he cares about is the bottom line. Even if it involves killing hundreds of thousands of children, he would sell those guns to all those child killers. Because he profits from it. So yeah, just I want people to recognize that, and that's on the table. So yeah, you can find me on Twitch, CoreyCam94, Twitter, X, YouTube, Instagram. It's Corey Campbell. And Paula, pleasure to meet you. Nonsmoker, Gibbs, Ghosty, also pleasure, and love you, Wick.
Okay, gang. Check us out tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern. The all-man panel talking about men's issues. I love you all. Bye-bye. Wait, bye,
Thanks.
everyone. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, we are off the air. How do you guys like it?